everybody thinks there's some new silver bullet rub. Everybody thinks there's some silver bullet sauce. Just get over that. Just get on to cooking and cook. If I were cooking backyard, which I've never done, but if I were, I'd tell, the guys cooking backyard, just jump straight into pro and get cooking. You'll improve more if you just cook and get over thinking there's silver bullets. It doesn't matter what you cook on. It doesn't matter what kind of meat you cook, really. It doesn't matter what kind of rubs and sauces you use. What really matters is how you can cook it. And the sooner you figure that out and start spending your time there, the sooner you'll start winning competition.
Welcome to the Pitmasters Podcast. I'm Rusty Monson.
I'm Anthony Lujan.
Today on the podcast, we got Crooked Pig's competition barbecue team. And we're going to talk about their road to competition barbecue, their success, and a couple tips and tricks that you guys can learn from them and what's in store for them in the future. So stay tuned, guys. Let's go.
Yo, what up, Rusty?
What's up, man?
Not a whole lot. Hey, so I was thinking this last week, you haven't talked too much about your Salt City drum. How much cooking have you done in that thing yet?
I have cooked a pork butt. I really like the deflector plate. I think I'm getting, I wanted to cook some ribs in it. I haven't got around to it since I was in Arizona, and I've been doing different things with like personal stuff, but pork butt turned out really well. I really enjoyed the like they say, the diffuser plate is, I want to try it with ribs. I want to try it with chicken. Before I flip over to the pellets, I really want to give that a shot because I like how it doesn't come straight off of the coals, and it might help with the color. So, but with the pork butt, it was great. It worked. So the problem I had with it is you couldn't get it really hot, which is fine. But once it got into temperature, it was not hard to keep into 300 degrees at all. I didn't have a problem with it. And just for fun, I let that thing roll. That rolled for like 13 hours on 3/4 a basket of Rockwood. So
nice.
Yes, Rockwood.
Well, I've been playing with, I should be careful with my words here. I've been playing with the new accessory on Traeger. Amazing. That's all I got to say.
What accessory?
I can't talk about it until literally November 11th. Make sure you watch your social media. November 11th, this accessory, game changer for sure.
Okay, see how you are.
Well, got to keep people on edge. And also, I'll put it on the Pitmasters podcast on November 11th so you can look forward and see exactly what it is.
And I'll keep going with the Salt City drums and doing a lot more because like I said, I'm trying to make that to be my competition drum. So I'm doing a lot of competition cooking on it. So that's what I'll be doing for the next few weeks. Nice. A lot of different, that class I took,
get your words out, Rusty.
A few weeks back. I want to try doing that. And I want to, like I said, switch over. I also want to get a barbecue guru for that too. So there'll be a couple of things. There'll be more information on that Salt City drum as I go on. So
we have some guests here today that they've been in every single podcast, but we really have them in the podcast today.
Yeah. It's like we always talk about them, but they're never here. So now they're here. Now you guys get to meet Crooked Pigs for the first time. So say hi, guys.
Hey, Rusty. How's it going, guys?
Hey, guys.
Who's who?
This is Matt Hansen here, and my brother Dave there is in studio, I think.
Yep. I'm here.
Dave is sitting next to us. He's going to have the vocal sounds, and Matt will have the phone sounds. All right, guys. So let's get started here. So we were talking to Matt a little bit before we started recording, and he keeps on talking about his dream brisket. So I want to hear about this dream brisket.
Let's have it there.
Well, as you guys know, I generally cook myself Snake River Farms briskets on the comp circuit, but gosh, I got this wild hair to try to pick up an A5 brisket. They've had them on Crowd Cow for some time now, but now Costco has got a deal. I just noticed on their website. They're $60 a pound, but you can get yourself an 11-pound Japanese Wagyu brisket, A5 grade.
Costco?
Straight out of Japan. Yeah, it's the Kagoshima Prefecture.
Already for the
ship frozen. $6.69.
So for this people that are slow at math, how much does that make it a brisket?
$6.69.
$600.
Holy cow!
So a little context here.
That's 11 pounds.
Little context here. Is you guys are wiping up the floor with brisket anyway. So
just pick your brisket wins and buy one.
Please don't do it.
I want to, though. Have you guys ever had any of that A5 Japanese beef? Ever had a steak?
No, I've seen it on TV shows. And
I've seen it on the internet.
Yeah, David and I had an opportunity to get some at in Vegas. We were down there we did a back-to-back comp. We did one in southern Utah, and then the following week just outside of Vegas. So we parked in Vegas, and we flew home, and then we flew back in. And while we were staying at the Mirage, we ate some A5 Wagyu at the steakhouse there, and it's life-changing, man. It's good stuff.
Is that true, David?
It's absolutely true. It's something like you've never tried before.
With the fork?
It is.
With a fork. Yeah. No need for a knife.
Nice.
Yeah, they say that the fat in the A5 Wagyu beef melts below your body temperature, and that's true, man. I mean, that stuff, you get that cooked medium rare, and that raw fat in the middle just melts in your mouth like it's mouth temperature, and the mouth feel of it, and it's something you can't describe almost.
So are you buying one and bringing it down for the banquet?
I'm definitely not doing that.
Where did you get it from in Vegas? I want to
take it to the Jack. Oh, we didn't get a brisket in Vegas. We got steak. We got it at the.
It's the steak.
At the steakhouse at the Mirage. I can't remember what it's called. It's one of the celebrity chefs run steakhouses.
I just heard you say the Jack. What's going on with that?
Well, apparently, providing Northern Idaho teams win, which I don't want to get presumptuous here, but it's looking like we may home state ourselves into the Jack here this coming year. So not next weekend, but a year from next weekend.
Nice.
So competition barbecue, let's start there. Like we start with all competition barbecue teams. Where did you guys get your start from?
Well, I think Dave and I have both had a long history of kind of some culinary, home kitchen. I mean, we've been foodies. We like to cook. We like to grill. We like to do all those sorts of things. But I kind of on a wild hair got an idea to do a barbecue competition that was here in Boise. I cook out of Boise. Dave cooks out of Eagle Mountain, Utah. But we get together and do the comps together. But anyway, there was a competition here in Boise, and the winner was going to qualify, get a golden ticket to the World Food Championships when it was in Vegas. Oh, I think it was 2014, and so we decided we'd give that a go, and we had a few months' notice, and so kind of got some smokers together and really did our homework and started doing some research, watching some TV. I know Rusty's a big fan of Pitmasters. I think I am too. We watched a lot of that. We did a lot of test cooks, and we were lucky enough to show up to that competition and GC, our first one out, and we qualified for the World Food Championships. It was kind of a interesting predicament we were in at that point, though, because, I mean, I borrowed enough pellet cookers to do that competition on. I didn't have a trailer. I didn't have a truck. We weren't planning on going to Vegas, but we qualified, and so we got the gear together, and a couple months later, we found ourselves in Vegas cooking against 50 of the best teams in the country, and so that was where the bug bit us, and we've been kind of hooked to this competition barbecue thing ever since.
Very nice. And talking with Dave before we jumped on the mics, he's said he's fiending because we're coming to the end of the barbecue season here in Utah and Idaho, and he's fiending. So what are you to do to get yourself by, Dave?
Well, when Matt and I were younger, and I guess I feel like I'm pretty old at this point, but when we were younger and in our prime, we used to go to the gym at night together, and we would hit the weights, and we used to tell each other, hey, the guys are out the clubs right now with the ladies, and we're in the gym getting our bodies ready. And I'm kind of looking at that this way in the off season with barbecue this year, is that people might be out having fun with their friends, family, and Matt and I are in the lab working for next year. So every weekend I'm cooking, every weekend Matt's cooking, and we're gearing up for the Royal and the Jack.
Nice.
I've seen that. You guys have been doing a lot of work right now, which, by the way, you guys could, slow down a bit, but it's cool. But your guys' food, when you guys post on Instagram, if you guys haven't followed these guys on Instagram, do it. I mean, they don't post a lot, but when they do, I mean, honestly, guys, and no joke, I follow everybody, and I don't see food better than yours. I just don't.
Well, they're not scared to share, right? They post all their boxes up there so everybody can look, and they're a great resource on how to box.
That's kind of been one of our things is, a lot of teams nowadays go to these classes. I know Rusty was saying that he went to one in Arizona this last weekend. And for us, we kind of pride ourselves that we never did that. It took us a lot longer to get to the point where we're at, but we have a lot of teams that have helped us along the way. And we feel the same way. We like to help a lot of the new teams, show them our boxes, tell them what we're doing. And we just like to help the circuit here get better and help these teams out. So we take great pride in that.
Yeah, it's awesome. When you go sit in these guys' trailer, like they're secretive, but they also will kind of steer you in the right direction. Like, I'm not going to get into too much what Matt does for coloring, but he's like, "Oh, my coloring's out. Can you see it?" And I'm like, "No." And then before I leave, he's like, "This is it." And then then he'll walk out the door. You know, he's very willing to share with some stuff, but not all of his stuff, which most barbecue teams are. But if you ever have a question, you walk up to these guys and they're going to tell you exactly how they're cooking.
So
yeah, I mean, my philosophy on it is it doesn't really help a person to give them, you know, top to bottom instruction. But if they're willing to ask on a particular point, I'm willing to give the answer, and I know that they're going to be receptive of it because they know they need the help right there. And I'm not here to say I've got the only way to do it, but I'll tell you how I do it. And I know Dave will too. And we think that if you're willing to ask, we're willing to tell you. And a rising tide raises all boats.
Right. Kind of like,
look at it.
Kind of like when we were both talking, like I gave you my pork recipe and you gave me your brisket recipe. You know,
you got it.
It's who cooks it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So like the Chad Ward episode, I'd love that. Yeah. It's like, it doesn't matter who, you know, you can learn how to shoot from Larry Bird, but you still have to shoot against Larry Bird.
Right.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But I mean, a little history between Salt City Barbecue, which is my team, and Crooked Pigs. Our first go, we took third to their second.
Yeah.
Our second go, we took second to their first. Our third go, we took second to their first. Right. And they were just beating us just one away. Right.
Right.
And I was bitter. I was always like,
was bitter.
Oh, no, I am. Oh, trust me.
Yeah.
So they come down to an SEA event here. And I am like, all right, this is my field, bro. Like, we're coming here. You're coming. I cook steak. I've cooked steak my whole life. Like, let's do this. So we're at awards and the steak comes up and they're like third place and they call my ticket. And I'm like, oh, right. Beat them. Because the whole time Matt has this way of going, oh, that was the worst. We lost.
Great actor.
So he was doing that all day. So I'm thinking, I got these guys. This is the first time I finally beat Crooked Pigs and good. You know, I beat him before one time, but that was in a weird situation. So second place, they call Crooked Pigs ticket.
They beat you by like 2 points, right?
Well, I don't know what it was. I don't care. They beat me. I don't care.
We were not expecting that. I know that we were cooking that second steak and I was temping it, and a guy came around from ThermalWorks with a camera, and he was taking some pictures, and I kind of let the steak get away from me, and I temped it, and I knew it was over, and I just threw that thing into an ice box or into a cooler on ice, and I let it sit there until the last second I had to turn it in, and I ran it in to turn in, and I saved that thing. I don't know how.
Nice.
But I think we had the highest score on doneness there. That was a miracle. I don't know how.
I beat him once.
Good for you guys.
I beat him with the choice brisket.
Yeah, Anthony's beat us more than once, I think.
Well, yeah, here and there.
Okay, so let's go back on the competition thing. So you guys have GC'd. You guys have done very well for yourself this year on the KCBS circuit. You guys just GC'd down in Grand Junction, which was a great competition. A lot of firepower down there. So you guys beat out a lot of good teams. Here in Utah, in the non-sanctioned events, you guys GC'd twice. Am I missing something? That's 3 GCs this year. And you guys have only done what? 8 comps maybe?
Well,
I think 7 comps. I think we did.
So 3 GCs out of 7 comps is not bad at all.
Yeah.
So and
an RGC in there too, and then a few.
For some people who've never taken a class and didn't go that route, how do you get to this point from just starting out and borrowing pellet grills to GC in like half the contest you guys enter?
The way we like to to talk about it. It's like, I mean, it is like taking a shot in the dark while you're blindfolded at a moving target. That's really what it is. I mean, if every weekend the judges are looking for something a little different, so the target's moving, and it's a shot in the dark because you have no idea what it is you did right or what it is you did wrong. You get your scores, and rarely do you get a comment card. Usually, it's just, you know, you can look and see how you scored and try to read tea leaves to figure out what it is you can do to improve or what it is you did right. And so we just feel like we've gotten lucky in some respects, but we've also cooked a lot, and we've taken advantage of some pointers and some tips that some of the guys that have been around a lot longer than us have been willing to give us, and that's really been beneficial. And you know, we've been receptive to that. When we've needed help, we've got it. And there's a few guys out there, you know, Jesse Johnson, Jason Stuckey. I mean, several guys out on the circuit who have just thrown some bones our way to really help us just make a jump when we needed it.
So Matt, what I was going to say there too, man, to piggyback off of you, was that, you know, for the longest time, man, it just felt like, we would turn our stuff in and like, we felt like we were going to win week in and week out. Like we couldn't do any better, whether it was our plating or our flavor profiles or the doneness. And then we wouldn't do well. And we felt like, you know, some of these teams just had like this secret weapon, man. And I think what a lot of new teams really get caught up in, which I think we did probably way too much, was the flavor profiles, the different sauces, the different rubs,
Amen.
The different injections, and going to Barbecue Pit Stop, which is a local store here in Utah, and just trying different things, when in reality, where we were really failing was with the doneness, because at the end of the day, this is a doneness competition. And you got to know how to cook those meats, and they are different animals, and they all cook very different, from temperatures to textures in the doneness. And you just got to cook those a lot. To Matt, like Matt was saying, is that we've just cooked a lot. And when you keep doing that, you get better. It's just repetitive over and over until you get successful at what you're doing.
And what does that look like? You know, because for me, we practice a lot. We were just kind of shooting our gun, you know, in the air and just hoping for the best. And then I took a class and that settled it. And that was a really quick transition for us. So what does that look like, you living here and him living in Boise?
Great question. So for me, my world, this is how I like to say it, is that, you know, I got my wife, Jana Ray, my 3 girls, Hadley, Kylie, and Lila, and then my baby, which is chicken thighs. And, man, I love those babies. And, I'm doing them every weekend, you know, and I hate to say it, there's been some competitions here recently where I've kind of held us back, and I've taken a shot at my pride, but I've really gone to the drawing board this off season, and what can I do to be better about it, and humbled myself, and went to some people here locally and asked for some help, and they've reached out to me. And so now I'm doing this certain thing every week. I'm cooking at the same temperature, pulling the chicken off at the same time, just trying to be as consistent as possible. And now I'm getting to know where I know exactly what it looks like when it's done. Even when they jiggle, I can tell the ones that have more juice in them. Again, speaking of the chicken thighs, and for me, that's my world. Matt, he's more into the brisket and the other categories, but that's how I can tell the doneness, just looking at them each and every weekend. So
I'm telling you guys, these chicken thighs are amazing. Can you actually take a moment and just walk us through your process of prepping these chicken thighs?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. So for me personally, I finally started going to Smart Chicken. I just feel like that's one of the better chicken thighs, out there in the market right now. They are a little bit smaller than, you know, some of the commodity chicken that you might get at your local grocery store. But for me, they have the thinner skin, and I typically don't like to scrape skin, or I haven't been recently. I'll scrape just a little bit of the yellow fat or the thick white fat that's on the side of the skin. But I don't even detach it from the chicken thigh. I snip both ends off the bone and scrape a little bit of that skin off, and then put the skin back on and wrap it up, and typically go to a contest that way. And then when I get there, typically brine it between 3 to 8 hours, pull it out of the brine, maybe inject it, wrap it back up, and then wait to throw it on the grill that morning. And then for me personally, and I know a lot of teams, this is where you get into, you know, you might have a disagreement about it, but I love cooking on a Traeger with my chicken. The most even cooked by far, guys, for chicken.
Well, guys, when he's saying he's wrapping his chicken, he's wrapping each individual piece, like 24 pieces. He's individually wrapping and pretty much setting the meat up to hit the grill.
If you're not driving right now, take a second, go to their Instagram and look up their chicken.
Yeah.
before it's even cooked.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Look at the chicken in the box. You won't find a better looking chicken. And trust me, I look at boxes every single day.
So I'll tell you a small little tip on that is like Anthony's saying, I do wrap it each individual piece with saran wrap. And I use probably about a whole roll for probably about 15 to 20 pieces just to make sure I get it as tight as possible. I'm really going to keep the shape there. And then one other little secret, and I don't completely freeze it, is I'll stick it in the freezer just for a couple hours in a really tight pan where they're just perfectly fit in there. And for some reason that just helps keep the shape as well. So just little tricks there that I personally learned. Nobody's taught me that. It's just something that Matt and I've kind of figured out, and it seems to work.
Nice. So you got to have a trailer. That's the key point of winning chicken.
It is. Well, I don't know if I win, but we'll see this year, guys.
All right, let's transition over to the brisket. You guys kill it on brisket. That's I think I don't know. I mean, just from the outside looking in, that's your best meat. So Matt, I think that's you, right? How do you?
Before we get into this a little bit with the brisket, just so you guys all know, you can, if you ever see Matt's wife, they make dates to the meat counter to go get meat. She might not plan that, but Matt does. He's like, hey, there's a store right here. We're going to swing by and look at their meat selection. This is how particular this guy is when he looks for brisket.
Yeah, I don't go to the grocery store without looking at the briskets or the ribs or pork butts. My brother Dave there, he calls me the meat collector. I've got a freezer outside and I've got all kinds of different cuts of beef in it. Mostly right now it's stocked full of Smithfield ribs, but that's another story. So brisket, what do you guys want to know? What can I tell you?
Well, obviously when we're at a competition up in Layton and you had a Kong cone just smashed in your face. This is a huge, gigantic ice cream cone. And I'm like, Matt, look at this brisket. And you went over and looked at this. I'm buying it just on the fly. What are you looking for when you go and select a brisket?
Well, I mean, really, honestly, what I'm looking for in a brisket is marbling. I want my brisket marbled. Above all else, I want that thing marbled. I want it marbled, point end to toe end. I want it marbled. That is what's going to give it flavor. That's what's going to give it moisture. And, for my money, Snake River Farms is the best way to go. And there's a couple reasons that's the case. Number one, I think the best briskets I've ever ordered are Snake River. But also, we've got them available here in the Boise, Idaho area and in the Salt Lake area where you folks are at the grocery stores. And so I'm able to pick through them. And so, people talk about hand-selected briskets. I can hand select my own. And so that's a real advantage. And so I'll do that. But, if I can't hand select them, and every year I end up ordering a few from Snake River anyway, I'll order up golds. And every time those gold briskets are great. They are marbled like nobody's business. And so that's the first thing I look for. Then I'm looking for flat thickness. I want a nice thick flat so I can have nice tall slices in the box. Now, I don't think it matters that much. You can get away with a thinner flat. It's maybe going to cook a little faster, but when you shingle those flat slices in your box, if they aren't as thick, you just overlap them a little more, and you can get the illusion of a thicker flat, or you can maybe even cut a little on the bias to make that slice a little taller and lay that in your box. So that's what I'm looking for when I select a brisket.
So weight's kind of out the window. You don't even look at weight. You're just mostly looking for marbling in the flat, right?
Well, I mean, if I'm ordering briskets from Snake River, I'm ordering their 20-pound plus briskets because I think my odds of getting a marbled thick flat are better on the bigger briskets. But that's not to say I haven't had some great briskets that have been in the 14-pound range. And it's just, you look on our Instagram. Last year we cooked ourselves a 28-pound gold that we picked up at Snyder Brothers Meats there in the Salt Lake area, and it was probably the best marbled piece of beef I've ever seen, and it turned out great. It was super thick. I mean, it was almost the slices were almost as tall as they were wide, and that thing was just, it was breathtaking to look at. I almost cut the thing into two and used it for 2 comps, but I ended up not.
Yeah, you guys got to go check that picture out on Instagram. This thing's huge. It's like from his chin to his kneecap. It's the biggest brisket I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So we separate our briskets when we cook, and we're cooking hot and fast. So I'm cooking on the Salt City drum smokers, right now and have been ever since we got them. In fact, we ordered up. I was cooking on gateways, and we, at least the pork and the brisket were getting cooked on gateways. Everything else was getting cooked on Traegers. But we got those Salt City drum smokers, and to be quite honest, we cooked on those at Comp the very first weekend we got the very first cook. I broke them in at Comp, and they have just been lights out ever since. And so we separate into the flat and the point separately. And lately we haven't. I mean, we've been cooking the point, but we haven't been really turning burn ends in that often. We're kind of at a crossroads here on whether we're turning burn ends in or not. It's hard for us because the two of us really like burn ends a lot, and I think when burn ends are good, they're better than the flat. But I still think that judges have a hard time deciding what they like in a burn end. Do they like a crunchy, crispy bark? Do they like it savory? Do they like it sweet? Do they like the fat melty? Do they like a little chew? And I think it's really hard to, pitch fastballs down the middle when the judges can't really agree on what they like. But when it comes to brisket flat, everybody knows what they're, what to expect. Everybody knows what makes a good brisket flat slice. And so we think it's easier to make the best damn average barbecue when you're cooking brisket flat slices versus point.
Sometimes it's hard to make that choice too, Matt, to leave those burn ends out, because I know we've been at comps, man, and it's been like, man, those burn ends are good. But then we just have to remind ourselves that we've gotten comment cards back where people are saying, too much fat in there or didn't render out enough. And for you and I, we thought, man, those are just the best burn ends we've ever had. And so trick for us, and our score started going up, not that they were bad before, but once we just started turning those slices, the flat, it just simplified it. It felt like when you're cooking those burn ends, it feels like you're cooking a whole nother category. So that just freed a lot of time up for Matt, took a lot of stress off him. When it came to plating, it was way easier to plate our box. And then we started getting better scores. So you just kind of hit on things like that. And I don't know why we didn't do that before, but it is super beneficial for us.
Well, one thing you guys taught me was to not complicate things, and by putting in, what was specifically for pork, just putting in the money muscle, because you don't want to like someone might like your pull, but they may not like your money muscle, or might like your money muscle, but not the pull. And like I said before, you got to get judged on that. So like I've had competitions where I've had a money muscle. It was great. Had the pull. It was really dry. So you're kind of just dumbing it down a little bit when you're not using everything. You're not giving them options to decide. You're just saying, this is, like you said, Matt, this is a flat. I know what that is. I'm going to judge them, instead of going, this is a flat, that's great, and here's this fatty or whatever. Now all of a sudden they have to judge on an entire piece of meat that's different. And I love burn ends. Well, this, like the same way you guys said, the second we stopped putting them in, even with pork, the second we started putting muscle, all of a sudden we got more. Our pork's our worst category, and we actually been doing pretty well with it by not complicating the box.
Right, exactly.
Well,
go ahead.
There's going to be a judge or two out there who takes a look at your box and goes, man, one presentation, two presentations, they don't know how to cook. They don't know what they're doing, or they screwed up their point. If they screwed it up, they didn't do their burn ends right. That's why they're not in the box. And you just can't win with that kind of judge. But most of the judges are instructed, as we know, to score you on the worst meat in the box. And so I just can't see why you should give them options. I mean, if my opinion is, you're not supposed to compare your meat to somebody else's meat, but they are supposed to compare all the meats that you provide them in the box and score you on the worst one. And so I don't want to give them that choice. Because you give me any two meats, I'll tell you which one's better. And I don't want a judge to look at my box and go, well, I like that better than that. I just want them to go, I like that.
Right. It's kind of like,
that makes sense.
It's kind of like a judge sitting there. Okay. They, like Rusty example. You get a box with burn ends and a flat. He's going to hurry up and just take that flat, taste it, because he's excited to get to the burn end.
I do the opposite. I go burn end first always.
Oh. All right, whatever.
But
you know
that's
what I mean?
a problem, though.
But it's like you're like, ooh, burn end, because that's meat candy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And everybody's excited for that burn end.
And I would argue if your burn end is so good and you put it in your box, that almost might hurt you too, because then they have to taste your flat.
Yeah, exactly. So,
well, and if burn ends are so good and they make or break your brisket box, why is it you never see burn end only boxes? Once in a blue moon, you ever hear about a burn end only box. But if that was really the bee's knees of brisket, then people just be turning burnt ends in.
That's true.
Yeah.
So you guys do really well with the brisket, but I want to kind of go back on those Salt City drum smokers. How are you guys feeling about those?
I mean, you touched on it a minute ago, Rusty, and I really just think that I don't want to knock Gateway. I think that they make a great product. I've still got their smokers at my house, and I cook on them. But in competition, I'm cooking on on those Salt City smokers, and I really just, the idea of one intake and one exhaust just makes so much more sense to me. I don't know why, and I like the way that Trevor talked about it on your podcast a couple of weeks ago. He likens the intake to a gas pedal, and can you imagine driving a car with two gas pedals? Well, I don't think it's a perfect analogy, but it's really close. And if you want to get that Gateway hot, you're going to get it hotter than that Salt City smoker, I think, unless you're leaving the lid off the Salt City smoker for a while. But I just feel like there's more margin of error on that Salt City smoker, and I can just trust that it's never going to get away from me, whether it's windy, whether it's warm outside, whether it's whatever. It's that thing. I can just leave it, and it's going to do its thing. And the Gateways are real good at that. And some of the other drums out there, the Big Papas and things, and Weber Smoky Mountains, they can do that too. But for us, it's about the one intake. And then that awesome heat deflector. We love that thing.
And so you guys do your ribs on Traegers as well for the color. Have you tried it on those Gateways yet with that?
On pellet. We have. We've tried. I mean, sometimes I even think I like the flavor of a rib just a little better maybe on a drum. I think that you've, again, got more margin of error on the pellet grill. I think that your windows aren't as narrow as they are when you're cooking hot and fast. And we think the color turns out more even end to end. And we just like the appearance in the box, and we don't think the flavor really suffers much cooking it on pellets. And we just like to set it, forget it aspect, the contest. It really allows us some more versatility and some more freedom to focus on some other things, some other meats.
So what kind of woods are you guys using on that? On your pellet grill, I should say.
On the pellet grill, I mean, I don't really have a whole lot of favorites when it comes to pellets. I mean, I think a good hickory pellet is really the best way to go on pellet grills. Although I'll use pecan and I'll mix in a little cherry depending on how I'm feeling. But usually at competition, it's almost just a straight hickory.
Okay, so let's touch on something. Our very first podcast here, I was doing a charcoal bit, which you actually kind of helped me with the research bit of it. Now I didn't really get into it with you, but I've seen on your face that you disagree. So touch on that for a second. So I argue that charcoal does not bring a specific flavor to your food. Go.
So I totally disagree. Now I'll cook on a Kingsford Blue Bag briquette. I will at home when I'm cooking steaks. But when I'm doing a long cook directly over charcoal, like my brisket on a can, on a drum smoker, I want some flavor of those meat drippings dripping down onto the fire, vaporizing and coming back up and flavoring our meat. I think that's one of the big advantages that you get out of cooking on a drum smoker is that fat vaporizing and flavoring your meat, much like it would when you're cooking a steak right over top of charcoal. Now, a steak over a blue bag, it's all on there for 5-10 minutes, maybe, depending on how you're cooking it. But if you're cooking a brisket, you're looking at 3 hours probably unwrapped in your drum smoker. And I've cooked briskets directly over blue bag, and I can taste that smell of blue bag charcoal. And I know that some people can't. Some people think it's just fine, and it probably is for some people. But for my money, I'm buying lump charcoal, good lump charcoal. And I'm particular about my lump charcoal even. I get dirty smoke out of some varieties of lump charcoal. I'm not going to name any names out there, but what I like to look for when I'm looking for lump charcoal is I like to look for pieces of charcoal. Well, first of all, I don't want to see any wood, any raw wood. I want everything carbonized in that bag. And I want the pieces when you hit them together to ting, to make, almost like a ceramic, pieces of glass hitting each other almost sound. Because to me that indicates that it's carbonized and there's no raw wood in there. Because the way I'm cooking on that drum smoker, I'm not all that charcoal is lit when I put the meat on, and I'm counting on it progressively lighting throughout the cook. And if it starts to light and burns dirty, then I'm not going to like the flavor. And so I'll use, I like rockwood a lot. I like cowboy. They used to call it a southern style, but it's now called hickory and oak. I like that charcoal. It's available at Lowe's. It's cheap. I'll cook on B&B charcoal, their lump charcoal. The Royal Oak stuff, it's hit and miss for me. Sometimes I get a good bag. If it's not a good bag, I'll cook steaks on it, and I'll just light it up and get it burning good and hot, and it's burning clean. I'll cook a steak on it, no problem. But for my money, I'm using lump charcoal. It's a little more expensive. It's a little less predictable. Pops a little when you light it, but man, I think it just makes some mean briskets and mean pork butts when you're cooking on a drum smoker.
So you're using, when you do competition, you're using a combination of 3. What is the purpose behind that?
Well, I do think that some charcoals like rockwood and some of these that really feel like they're carbonized seem a little neutral. They seem like there's not a lot of flavor from them. And so, I may take a few pieces of Royal Oak or maybe a handful of briquettes and throw those in with my mix, just so I get a little more depth of flavor in that charcoal. I think if you some of these really well carbonized brands like Rockwood, which definitely have their place, and I wouldn't cook without them. I just think that sometimes they're a little neutral. They just kind of lay back and don't really add much to the flavor profile. And I want a little something else. You could probably accomplish that with just a little more flavor wood, but I just like a little bit of a less clean burning charcoal, just on top with mostly my base charcoal underneath.
And the class I just got done with, he'll use blue bag charcoal, Kingsford, mixed with Royal Oak. And the reason why is because he likes the lump, but he also likes the fact that when you mix the two, the airflow is much better and they become more predictable by putting the lump in. Or putting the briquettes. He puts briskets in there.
That's awesome.
Full briskets. He gets 20-pound briskets and put in his charcoal basket. I'm like, that's crazy.
You keep carbonizing your briskets all the way to charcoal, Rusty, and you can just burn them like charcoal.
Hey man, I've cooked like that before. I didn't mean to, but it just turned out that way.
You have not.
Okay, so all right, I am not going to rebuke. I already said my piece.
So we talked a lot about the charcoal side. Now let's switch over to Dave. Have you cooked with a lot of different pellets, like different brands? Are you seeing anything responsive in different pellets? Because you're cooking your chicken and your ribs on pellet grills. Not
really, to be honest with you, Anthony. It's for me, it's more just about the cook than it is the pellets. Like Matt said, mostly hickory, cherry. I'm not a specific brand of pellets. They all just put out smoke to me. So I'm more concerned about what temp I'm cooking at, when I'm pulling that chicken off, how much I'm scraping off that skin. But the pellets, not a whole lot, man.
Right. So is there any techniques you guys have used on the pellet grills? Because obviously it's the kind of like a convention oven, you set it, forget it type scenario. Is there anything that you're doing like, hey, I'm going to run it at 200 degrees for 10 minutes and I'm going to bump it up? Is there any like techniques that you can use to acquire better flavor?
So Matt, why don't you talk to him about how we do the ribs on the Traeger?
I mean, we're going to give you guys some top level ninja tricks here for our Traeger cooks. A lot of guys are cooking on pellet grills and they're using smoke tubes because they don't feel like they're getting enough smoke flavor. And really the problem with cooking on pellets is this: your heat source and your smoke source are the same thing. And so the hotter you cook, the cleaner the fire. And I think that Traeger and Green Mountain and Louisiana and Yoder and a number of different companies have had difficulty coming up with, a predictable formula for making smoke out of their pellet grills. and then still having a controller that keeps temperatures the way it ought to. It's really hard to beat the good old 3-speed Traeger controllers for smoke. You set those on smoke, they smoke like chimneys, and you got plenty of flavor on them. You just left them on there until you had the flavor you wanted, and then you turn it up and cooked it till it was done. Well, as the controllers have gotten more complex, I think that their ability to put smoke out predictably has diminished. And so, guys have gone to the smoke mazes and the smoke tubes, the amazing smoke tubes or whatever they are, and gone that route. There's a few other fixes, the Mojo bricks and things. But for us, we stumbled upon the keep warm setting on our. We're cooking right now. We're cooking on a Traeger ironwood. What is it? The 885 big ironwood. And in fact, we just set up a new Timberline 650 the other day, or 850. I can't keep these Traeger numbers straight. If Traeger marketing is listening, all we need is a Timberline and a Timberline XL and an Ironwood and an Ironwood XL and a Pro XL. We don't need 885s and 1300s, but that's a side point. But anyhow, we stumbled upon this setting, the keep warm setting, and we just think it barrels smoke out. And so when we're starting our ribs or our chicken, we get that thing up to about whatever our set temperature is going to be, 250, 275, 300, and then we push keep warm. And we throw our meat in there, and for the first hour or so, we leave it there and keep warm, and it seems to stay pretty close to the set temp, but man, it just barrels smoke out, and we feel like we can get a good clean smoke on our meat, and then we can switch over to cooking at our cook temp.
And if you don't have a Traeger that does that, the class I had just taken, they had built, I don't know if they built it or it was already in there, but underneath your grate, underneath your diffuser plate, they had a little thing in there, and he puts 1-inch chunks of wood in the bottom, and it gets hot down there and it smokes.
Really?
So he puts two 1-inch smoke, like 1-inch pieces of wood down there, and it just heats it up, and right there by that fire pit.
You're just doing it right next to the pot.
And just sits there and smokes. You have your own little wood in there smoking.
This is huge. This is big. I've never heard of this.
And so he puts two of them in there.
Try that.
Yeah.
And it smokes through that. Now, if you have a warm setting, that's an option. I don't know how much necessary that would be. I think it had a little bit better flavor. I mean, I love pellet flavors, but if you're getting the wrong pellets, you're getting a lot of oils in there.
Yeah.
But you just put those 2 pieces of wood down there, maybe 3, and they're smoking the whole time. They're just in there, and the good kind of smoke where it's not burning. It's, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but just a light burn.
The light blue smoke.
Yeah.
That's a good tip there, Rusty.
I can give some pellet grill tips.
You just had to fly Arizona to get it.
I did.
It was an expensive tip, but he got it.
And there you go. So, you guys do your ribs on the pellets, and you guys do your chicken on the pellets. Your pork, you go on drums?
Yep.
Yes,
correct.
we do.
Okay. So your guys' pork boxes are legendary. And if you ever go to a competition with Crooked Pigs and you've never met them before, you're going to hear about them because people are like, oh, did you see their Facebook, their Instagram page?
Yeah, he's posting live too. Like he's closing it, and while the runner's running the box, he's posting it.
So we can touch on pork. Who does pork in this?
We kind of do.
I'm usually cooking the pork, but the thing about the boxes is I got to give a shout out to my brother here. He, I think I've been kind of cooking just a hair longer than he has, and I kind of got him rolling on this competition barbecue thing. But man, he came at it, and he's just got this eye for what makes. He's just got an aesthetic eye, is all I can say. And he's kind of brought me in that direction, and I'm able to now kind of see what it is that he sees, but I wouldn't have seen it without him. And so Dave spent a lot of time trolling Instagram and Facebook and looking for people's turning boxes, and we got to give a shout out to Heath Riles, who posts some of the most amazing boxes out there, and Travis Clark too. They both have, and it's really kind of opened our eyes. But I'll say one more thing, and then I'll throw it over to Dave. But what I like to say is it's about the essence of a pork turn-in box. It's about the idea of a pork turn-in box. It's not about making it exactly perfect, and it's not about, throwing it all in there. If you've got this concept in your mind and you can translate that into the box, we like to say the essence of a pork box. I don't know if that's translating, but I'll turn it over to Dave to kind of do a little more explanation here.
Well, thank you. Yeah. So back to what he was kind of saying. I mean, I think where it started for me is I graduated from culinary arts school at Boise State University. And so it's kind of taught classically on how to plate, upscale dishes. And so when I got into the barbecue scene, kind of started to look at the barbecue plating the same way, the really finite details, having a finesse about it that, maybe a lot of the teams don't have. And, to Matt's point, a lot of it was looking on Instagram, trying different things. But yeah, I think to Matt's point, it is the very essence. So, like with our money muscle, for the longest time, guys, we were searching for, the perfectly round money muscle. Right. And we've just realized that you're not going to get that. There might be a vein of fat that's running through it. So then you got a debate there. Do you want to turn in a money muscle that's a little more round that has a vein of fat running through it that didn't cook out? And for years we were turning that in because it had a better shape to it. But we just started to realize that it's just not worth it. We were getting docked points. We were getting hit. Our pork scores were low. And so we've learned how you can trim that little vein of fat out of it and plate it. And the pieces still look pretty circular. It's not perfect, but how we layer them in there and shingle them and sauce them up, they just look really good. And I mean, I don't want to talk too great about us, but yeah, if you do go look at our Instagram pages, you'll see our money muscles. And yeah, it's thinking about that in advance. When it comes time to turn in, taking those money muscles, separating them, trimming them down, getting that vein of fat out, and turning in the best meat you can. So.
And see, I like I said on this podcast before, you eat with your eyes. I mean that. You eat with your eyes. I am convinced, and I'll always be convinced, and no one can tell me otherwise. But your taste scores go up if your food looks good. That's a fact.
Yep.
So I am convinced that since your guys' look so good, I've tried your food. It's terrible. And so it's proof in the pudding right there. Like David really saves this team on a consistent basis. No, it's actually some of the best I've ever had. Actually really. I remember we cooked one and Jared cooked the best brisket I've ever tasted in my whole life. And then I think Matt's wife came and handed us one of yours. And I'm like, I just got done saying, Jared, this is the best brisket I've ever had. We got this. And then all of a sudden she's like, here, try crooked pigs. And so I tried it and I was like, that's the best brisket I've ever had. We lost.
But you just said when you got back from Arizona, that was the best brisket you ever had. So
that was. I'm not joking. That I have now tasted better brisket than your guys's.
Was it an A9 or what were they cooking?
They were cooking Snake River.
Snake River.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
So sorry, go ahead, Matt. What were you saying?
Well, I was going to say I agree with you that I think that appearance makes or breaks your taste score. And people think, well, appearance score is weighted so lightly on the overall score, and they overlook it. But man, we look at it like those are free points, just there for the taking. All you have to do is be disciplined about it and care about it and have attention to detail. And we do things in our trailer when it's turn-in time. I mean, we push turn-in times sometimes because we're trying to touch up the parsley. We spend a lot. I mean, we've been known to take pictures of the turn-in box and then look at the pictures to figure out what fine-tuning tweaks to make, because you can see things, on a camera lens that your naked eye can't see, because the way the human brain processes what the eyes see just doesn't work the same. And so, and once you get paying attention to those details, you can really take your stuff up a whole notch. And as Dave said before, we've finished contests and gone, we don't think we can do anything, but that's the best we can cook, and then not scored that well. But as we've progressed in this competition game, we've cooked and cooked more and more, closer together, more comps each year. We've, found new areas to improve, new levels, new, areas of development. And looking back, we're cooking a whole lot better than we used to cook. And it didn't seem like it at each step along the way, but we've been able to progress just by paying attention to detail.
So, and I'm a firm believer of this, Matt, and you tell me if I'm wrong. It feels like we roll up at a competition and it feels like we're about to the top third of the teams that are there. And I feel like when it comes time to turn in and our meat gets sent to that judging table, when those boxes get opened, I feel like that's what separates that top third from the other 2/3. They open the boxes and they automatically see those good looking boxes and they go, that's a good team right there. We haven't tried their food yet, but we know that's a good piece of meat right there. And, I would say
absolutely
9 times out of 10, our meat probably is really good. But I think when they open that up, they just the cream's already rising to the top and they haven't even tasted your food. And so why not set yourself up that way at the beginning of at the beginning of the tasting? I mean, you'd be foolish not to.
And see, we didn't focus on that. So we're taking a better approach to it. I've already tried to look at the boxes and stuff. And when I did, so the mantra was when I first learned barbecue, especially competition, was hot food. Get your food hot to the judges. Then we saw your guys' boxes. I mean, there's no way that's going there hot. There's no way. So do you guys care about that at all?
I think you'd be surprised how hot our food is when we turn it in. It looks like we're spending a lot of time getting that together, but really, putting the meat in the box is the very last thing. We're making sure that parsley's perfect, and we've got that meat, hot and sliced and in jus, just ready to go into that box. And we throw it in that box real quick and touch it up real fast and slam the lid and get it out the door. But it's, it's about setup too. I mean, you can't expect to be, slicing everything and getting it in the box last minute. I mean, I oftentimes will have my brisket, sliced and in jus and ready to lay out in the box 20 minutes before it needs to go in the box. And I'll know exactly how it's going to go in that box. Same thing with pork. I think pork is maybe one of those categories that requires the most attention and really has the most, room to set yourself apart from some of the other teams. And you can spend a lot of time right after rib turn in, getting that ready to go, getting that stuff cut and chunked and whatever you need to do and laid out. And you can lay out in a pan with hot jus and hot sauce and just have it waiting to go into that box. And then you can drop it in the box and send it into the judges and keep it warm.
I think that's the key, like you were saying, knowing how you're going to present it before you do it. Because when we've done it at the same time, week in and week out, it just becomes like the back of your hand. You know what you're going to do. There's not a guessing game. You're not trying to play like an artist and being Picasso and throwing different pieces of meat here and there. You just know what you're going to do. And that keeps the heat in it. And then it just simplifies the process, which I think is really what Matt and I've tried to really do, is make it as easy as possible come turn in time.
And taking a picture is important too. I mean, it sounds weird, but when you're looking at it, it looks different. And you take a picture and you look at the picture and it looks, because one of our first boxes was a chicken box. I remember looking at it going, God, that was good. We did a good job with that chicken box. We took a picture, posted on Instagram. I looked on Instagram and go, oh God, that's terrible. And here we are. Look at our cool chicken box. Yay. And everyone's like, yeah, that's great, man. So, I mean, taking a picture is a really good advice. So, and taking a picture, look at it, and then adjust based on the picture. It sounds weird, but I've heard that from you guys first, but then I've heard it since then from some pretty prominent teams.
Yeah, you take the picture and you'll pick up stuff like really quick, like, oh man, there's this huge splatter of sauce right there. You didn't even see it until you look at the photo. Like, that's the biggest tip.
Or your edges on your parsley even.
Yeah.
They look straight to the naked eye because our eyes just kind of look at it and go, yeah, it's straight in the box. But when you take that picture, for some reason, you can just tell what's sticking out when you just can't see with the naked eye. And maybe some people can, but I'm not one of those people. And increasingly, as we do this, we're able to detect it more without taking pictures. But that really just will give you a step up over the competition if you're willing to do that.
Yeah. How many times have you built a box and you're like, yes, it's ready to go. You take a picture and you're like, oh, there's a piece of yellow parsley.
All the time. And those are things that our brains just filter out. And if you take a picture, you can see it.
Yep.
Okay. So when you guys started, you kind of, like I said, you started not from the class, from kind of pulled your own bootstraps up. Knowing that, what kind of advice would you give someone who's in a backyard competition right now, that backyard circuit or not, and wants to jump into the pro circuit? Coming from where you guys came from, what would your advice be for them?
Dave gave it a minute ago. We spent a whole lot of time worrying about rubs and sauces and flavor profiles. And there are a million good rubs and a million good sauces out there. I'd say go buy yourself an assortment of rubs from Heath Ryle, or go buy yourself an assortment of rubs from Cosmos, and then just get over it. Forget it. Don't mess with it. Everybody thinks there's some new silver bullet rub. Everybody thinks there's some silver bullet sauce. Just get over that. Just get on to cooking and cook. If I were cooking backyard, which I've never done, but if I were, I'd tell, the guys cooking backyard, just jump straight into pro and get cooking. You'll improve more if you just cook and get over thinking there's silver bullets. It doesn't matter what you cook on. It doesn't matter what kind of meat you cook, really. It doesn't matter what kind of rubs and sauces you use. What really matters is how you can cook it. And the sooner you figure that out and start spending your time there, the sooner you'll start winning competition.
Yeah. And Matt, to me, I mean, I liken these barbecue contests much to basketball or football. And I know people make fun of me at where I work, but I call it a competitive sport. And I think of, guys, rookies coming into the NBA or the NFL. And if you think of the NBA, you got a guy that comes in, maybe struggles at his free throws, and then he goes up to a really good free throw shooter on the team and learns technique, and watches him and practices. And that's what I'd say to these new teams that are coming up as pro teams is, go ask those guys that are good at those free throws. Ask the guys that have put in the work. A lot of those teams, we found that out when we were rookies per se, is they were willing to help. They may have been a little secretive, like Anthony said, but if you really went to them and you're humble about it and said, I think I know what I'm doing, but I'm not sure. Can you give me some pointers? They were always more than happy to, and take those to heart. Don't think that, even though you're a good cook, don't think you're the best cook out there. You can always learn from somebody and grow from people that have been around the block a few times. So, and we're still doing that. We feel like, if you're not getting better, you're just staying idle, you're going backwards. And so we're still asking teams, we're talking, we've talked about going to a class. So there's always room for improvement.
And we, as a new team this year, we didn't really, we asked for a lot of advice. I took the class. I think we did a lot with that. The cool thing is on the circuit, man, a lot of these guys just offered advice too, knowing we were new. So that was cool. You guys as well. Still to this day, like, oh, do this and this and this. And so it's cool, not only you go there and you ask too, but a lot of teams will kind of see you and come over and say, hey, what's going on? And they will give you it all day long. And, they love to help people out. And some people like to hear themselves talk. I'm one of those guys. I just like to hear myself talk. So, I will give you advice just based off the fact that I just want to talk to you and to show you how cool I am.
Alrighty. So Dave, Matt, what are your guys' favorite thing to cook outside competition barbecue? What, if you're like we said before, you're hanging out at home, you want to throw something on the grill, what's your go-to?
Dave, go ahead. I need a mistake here.
Goodness. I don't know if I'm always on the grill, guys. I mean, I just feel like, eat so much barbecue, and steaks and things like that. I typically like to have kind of like a fine dining thing. I have this bistro chicken recipe that, there's a really nice restaurant in Idaho that Matt and I used to go to. And, man, it just has some mushrooms. It has a really nice kind of wine, cream butter sauce. That's kind of my go-to, some comfort food with some mashed potatoes, run those potatoes through a ricer, and, just sit down to a really nice meal.
Nice.
Matt? And that's funny because I'm trained a culinary, from culinary school too. So for me, it's like, I cook barbecue too, but sometimes I just want to cook a good handmade pasta, with some stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's nothing those. Yeah. Sometimes you need to take a break from barbecue and just be like, you know what? I'm going to make some carbonara tonight.
Yep. Yeah.
Go ahead, Matt. What do you got? What do you cook, man?
Rusty, I was going to say, I think you're right though. That the idea that you've got this foodie culture, born into you is what makes you a good barbecue cook, and it's what makes Dave a good barbecue cook. What gives me the desire to cook good barbecue is just a desire to make really good food, and so when I'm out cooking on the grill, I like cooking steaks. I've got this butter caramelized Brussels sprout recipe I'm doing with on the side with steaks that I really like doing now. But I like to bake, and I like to make the best baked good on the planet, whether it's a chocolate chip cookie or a chocolate cake or whatever. And it's just that desire to turn out a really good product and know what the difference is between, just average food and some food that somebody really put their heart and soul into. And that's really what makes a good barbecue cook, I think.
Nice.
Well, so I every time you guys say fancy dining in Idaho, I can't get over the fact that I just think that the Sizzler is the probably most fancy thing you get.
I've been to Boise. There are some hole in the wall places that have amazing food there.
We've got our share of hole in the wall places. We've got some pretty fancy joints too. Boise, Idaho is getting to be quite the mecca for the dining experience. We've got some great places. If you ever get the chance, I'll take you guys for a culinary tour of the Treasure Valley.
Sorry.
All right, I think that's a good note to end this on. Where can we find Crooked Pigs? Where we can follow you guys at?
Mostly on Instagram. Right now we don't have a Facebook page, but go to Instagram, just Crooked Pigs Barbecue, and that's where we're at.
I believe it's crooked underscore pigs underscore barbecue.
You're right.
On Instagram there.
So you guys I just wanted to ask real quick though, are you guys cooking a lot this coming up? You guys doing a lot of comps? You guys gonna really put yourself out there this year? I mean, because you guys did a good. You guys got an invitational invitation, which is basically going to happen. So you're already in the Royal. Jack. So no, they got a bunk for the Jack.
We're planning to make that journey to do the invitational, the Open, and the Jack. We're planning to make that tour, and some things might throw a wrench in that, but we really try to plan our barbecue schedule. It's tough out west, as you guys know. It's not like when you're out in, Georgia or Kansas City or Florida and these places where you can, in California, where you can cook the different comps an hour or two away every weekend. There's one contest in Boise, Idaho. And aside from that, we've got to travel 5 to 7 hours minimum to get to a comp. So, we'll keep it probably around 10 contests next year, try to spread them out pretty evenly so we can, keep our skills brushed up and stay, feeling like we're fresh. And we'll cook a bunch. We're going to start out in Bullhead City, Arizona, and move on throughout the rest of the year and finish out east on those two big comps.
Nice. So Crooked underscore pigs on Instagram, guys. Give them a follow, if not only to show like their presentations.
Yeah,
the food is as good as advertised. Like I said. On the circuit this year, it's besides the brisket I tried in Arizona. They were cooking the best food I've tasted, and on the circuit, and it's kind of, they keep on beating us for a good reason. They're super. The food is unreal, so it's as good as advertised. If you want to get some great ideas on how to do some boxing, just look up their Instagram.
Yeah,
or shoot us a message. We're happy to help.
Yeah,
nice.
Do that. They are very happy to help, guys. They've helped me. I would say Crooked Pigs between David and Matt are probably the team that's helped us the absolute most out of anybody, and their willingness to help and be transparent. And a lot of people are transparent, but you kind of get this, but they're not. There's let me show you what's going on, and then they ask you to their trailer, and then they say show up in 15 minutes, and then they're not there. And it's 110 degrees outside.
Usually because they just went to the barbecue pit stop to get some pretzels.
No, they went to Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know Dairy Queen you went to. We were there.
There's only one.
That was the second time we went to Dairy Queen.
No, that was in Grand Junction.
Yeah, it was.
All right, guys. Well, we appreciate your time. Like I said, we talk about you on the podcast. It's good to finally put some voices to the stories, and we hope to have you back on because, this is a longer podcast than we're used to, and I still could go on for another 45 minutes. So we appreciate your time.
Thanks a lot, guys.
We love the podcast, guys. Thank you.
Alrighty, that was a good one with Crooked Pigs Barbecue there, Rusty. A lot of info.
Yeah, we've become really good friends with them on the circuit. They're at every comp we are, unfortunately. Good to hear. We'll probably do 5 more than them next year, so we can have a break. But no, in all seriousness, though, they're the team that I really look up to on the circuit, and they've helped us a ton, and we do appreciate them immensely. So, but yeah, so we'll talk with them again because there's a lot of stuff coming out. We will plan on next season. Anthony and I will be doing live feeds from the competitions.
Yeah.
So you guys will hear a lot more from these guys. And so again, thanks for listening, guys. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere that you can listen to podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Castbox. You can watch us on YouTube. Yeah, YouTube. We have a new backdrop. Yeah. We'll probably have a new one by the time you watch this one. But again, guys, subscribe, tell everyone about it, about the podcast, and we do appreciate your support. And next week we'll have some more good stuff for you. Thanks, guys. All right.